911.
Cardiac arrest.
25-0.
We have a working fire.
Hold traffic, shots fired.
We're going to kind of go back to, what I wanted to ask you about a little bit with the tragedy that happened to you back in 1990. Would you mind, I've kind of prefaced that a little bit going into that, but would you mind just telling us, walking us through that day's events for you on the raceway?
I'll be happy to. Like all firefighters, we all work a couple of jobs. And I found out early in my career that the more you teach, the more you learn. So working at the Daytona International Speedway actually gave me an area of, I'll say, complete silence, except for engine roar, to be able to write lesson plans for teaching at the community college. Working at the Daytona International Speedway is by invitation only. We work hard to have the best of the best individuals for life safety. Most people don't realize that at these super speedways, we have a physical hospital, we have emergency rooms, and the day that I was working, I was assigned to the fourth turn, aka Calamity Corner, and I always felt I was safer working the speedway than I was an extra shift at the department because everything is physically orchestrated. And on that day, I was working with my partner that we worked at different fire departments, but we worked together at the Speedway consistently for 14 years. It was just another day. There was no making lesson plans that day, and we're sitting, and it's almost the end of the race, and I just poured us some carrot juice. My buddy would always say going to the Speedway is like a picnic, and it was because I always packed lunch. And I'm being very careful not to spill any carrot juice that day, as NBC had already interviewed us prior to the race as they were doing a special on the medical care at the Speedway. So it was just another call. And as many people in the civilian world might not recognize, because you just think it's just another call. And you can hear the tires popping in the background in the third turn. So you know at 180, 210 miles an hour that these cars are going, it's going to slide a bit before they come to a complete stop. The caution light went out. Uniquely enough, for driving 500 feet, we still put our seatbelts on. And we put our seatbelts on, and the lights signify we acknowledged that there was a crash in our area. The dispatcher that is at the start-finish line in one of the control booths there at the Speedway told us to go out on the track, and I was assigned the vehicle to go to. And there's different tells in the race car industry to help everybody. The first one for the drivers is them taking the net down to the window beside them. That is an indicator that they're conscious and alert, and they might be injured, but they're able to give you that sign. Well, as we approached and I got out of the vehicle, the driver wasn't taking the net down. So that was a tell to me. And as I approached the car and started to take the net down, telling the individual who I was and why I was there and what we were going to do, I saw something black, loud, and roaring, and then an explosion like I'd never heard before. Mathematicians went ahead years later and looked at the frames of the video, because it was on live television and being recorded,
Yep.
that it was a 9G hit or spin that I was in the air. So I lost consciousness during that spin of a time and a half, or as my friends like to say, best flip, worst landing.
Yeah, they gave you a medal with that on it, didn't they? As a tongue-in-cheek joke from the firehouse, didn't they?
It was actually from the sheriff's department helicopter that went ahead and airlifted me out. Did give me a medal. They came to the ICU, in fact, and it was very funny in the fact that these two deputies in their flight suits with their shoulder holsters were told by the nursing staff that they weren't allowed to see me, with the lead deputy saying, "You're in Volusia County. I can go anywhere I want to, and I have a medal to present." And so it was quite humorous. So the crash happened. I don't remember flying through the air. The next thing I remember is hearing something roaring and thunking around my head. And I went to take a deep breath and I couldn't inhale. And I thought, well, if I just move my head around, I'll be able to breathe. And I couldn't. All of a sudden, that thunking noise came to a complete stop. And I heard my friends screaming and talking to each other and calling my name. And during that time, one of the individuals who has a strong North Carolina drawl was saying, Mark, I'm going to put my hand in your mouth and I don't want you to bite me. You've got sod all over your face. And I thought to myself, okay, Bill, I promise not to bite you. I would like to breathe. And he went ahead and moved that sod. I was melting to the manifold system underneath the vehicle. My left arm was entangled in it.
With the side pipe exhaust, yep.
And so from that, pure manpower moved the vehicle enough that they were able to get me out from the vehicle. And then they rolled me over. I was face down, holding proper traction on my head and such, and neck. And I looked up at them and told them, I passed command. I'm no longer in charge of the scene. And a couple of them just started laughing and recognized, this is our bud here, and he's going to be okay. Go ahead.
From what I've learned about this after the fact, this was probably one of the worst calls that they had run. I think we had talked about this before as friends, but I don't think any of them had run, an injured friend or family member that you had mentioned before. So, how are you, in hindsight, how are you thinking about, their ability to process and work through this? Seeing you right
there. So my backup team was en route when I was dispatched. They were dispatched from the central ambulance, well, the hospital at the Speedway infield. And so, again, it's training and practice and updating and reviews. We had never practiced taking care of one of our own people in all of the exercises that we had. There was never a scenario where one of us got hurt in the 14 years that I had worked there. So my faith in having total of 5 paramedics, 2 trauma surgeons, and a respiratory therapist at my side, in which I later learned in 17 seconds, was amazing. And everyone on the call, I either went to school with, I was taught by, or had taught them with life-saving skills. So I was fully aware of their capabilities from the Sheriff's Department helicopter to everybody that was around me. Things were happening quickly. I started telling them what I thought was the worst problem with me. You get stripped naked, and they put the mask trousers on me, which is an antique in
kind of an
medical
outdated
care.
technology, isn't? I think we've gone away from that.
Yeah, oh yeah, that stopped within, I think, 2 or 3 years of the incident, but it worked for me. And I can tell you, those inflating it, those creases pinch, but again, small problems. My partner was at my side as they were taking me to the helicopter, and he's telling me that he'll be at the hospital soon, and my mother would be taken to the hospital, and he would sit with her. And I thanked him, and I shook his hand. I says, things are going to work out the best I could. When I got into the helicopter, and they're securing me, and I just thought, if I close my eyes and just take a deep breath and relax and slow myself down, it'll really help me make my way through this. And I was a little too silent and holding my breath too long till the helicopter medic went ahead and took his fist and did a sternal rub on me. And, I looked up at him, and it's ripping the hair off of my chest as he was vigorous in his actions. And I'm going, I'm going to be squared away. I'm awake. I'm with you. And he says, Mike, I'm going to start assisting your breathing. And when the top of that amber bag came over me, it was a moment. 2-minute flight to the hospital. It was a hot landing. Usually there are the stopping of the rotors and such.
Mm-hmm.
But because there was additional patients at the Speedway, it didn't stop. And they got me out of there and got me into the trauma room. They started doing the things that they do to trauma patients. I've done it dozens of times for others. It's different on the other side of the coin. I started telling them what I thought was wrong with me. The trauma surgeon, one of the trauma surgeons, flew in with me. Did some initial testing of using belly sticks, which is a large needle going in the abdomen, to find out about my internal bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that once, and I was clean. And the trauma surgeon said, no, let's do that again. I just saw what happened here. And the impact was at 160 miles an hour. So he figured that one out pretty quickly. But they started telling me about my left arm, and a orthopedic surgeon said, Mike, I'm going to tell you, it looks like we're going to have to amputate your left arm. And at that point, that was a moment of pause for me, because I was left-handed, and I raced catamarans on my days off from the fire department. That was my primary hobby. And I looked at him and I says, when I wake up, I want to see my left arm. So I don't care what you do or who you have to talk to, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
From time of impact to time in surgery was 32 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, the golden hour really worked out for me.
Emotionally, where, with your memory of the events, do you see certain points where you were fighting that wave of, like with my own son's cardiac arrest? I mean, I can look back and see moments where I was pushing my emotions to the side to focus on what I felt had to be done. And then I could kind of feel at moments where I was more like what most people would react. And I kept trying to keep those emotions within reason and tried to let my mind and my training, and myself overcome that, to not let my emotions overcome me. Where were you at? Cause where were you at during these various parts?
Some people talk about a roller coaster, but it wasn't a roller coaster. It would be like calm and then a rocket taking off of emotions, and then calm and a rocket taking off of emotions. When I first got into the trauma room and they were describing, 34 white male, vehicle, crash, and just started, and the scribe started, taking the notes. And I'm thinking like, holy crap, they don't even recognize me.
Mm-hmm.
And the trauma surgeon said, hey, this is Mike Staley with Fire Rescue. One of the nurses had to leave.
Yeah.
And she is a good buddy. But the trauma to my friends was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
The trauma alert brought the chaplain on duty. And I recognized him as a Catholic priest. And he says, Mike, I want to give you the last rites. I said, pray for them. Put your prayers onto the team that's helping me. That's who needs to help the most.
Wow.
So that was that. It was just, people talk about a roller coaster, but it definitely wasn't a roller coaster. It was like a spike up into the sky and then a free fall to what normal should be. And because things are acting so quickly, like with your son's resuscitation, it's a dance. It's procedures, it's policies, it's protocol. And when you know it, you know what's happening. You can fool some of the people some of the time. But when you're in the business, you know where things are heading, even going up or going down.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I saw it coming on before it happened, and it took me 2 months to really be willing to look at everything with what happened with him. And to try to emotionally overcome what I thought were my own memory of the events and afterwards, because I had all of these conceptions of what I thought I did or said. And, it was ironic. I think one of the few things that I had said to one of the cops before I got back in the ambulance to help take over care, because there were no paramedic units available. So that pretty much left me as not only the highest license, but I think the most experienced person on scene for my license level as an advanced EMT. And, there was this moment where like I had this thought of my wife and was like, hey, look, please have someone stay with my wife until, family can get here and she can come join me at the hospital. Cause we had a whole bunch of younger kids. There's no way to, and I didn't want my wife driving. She was very, very well composed, externally, but emotionally, I knew what she was going through and did not want her driving. But, so much of that for me even was just thinking about her in that moment's notice and then going right back to, I have a job to do.
Life-saving care isn't for the weak of heart. And, those that are in the profession and want to grow with the craft of saving lives have that passion.
Once again, this is your host, Christopher, of the Ukrainian Fire Chaplain Show. If you have not already, go ahead and look at our website, theufcshow.com. It's got information about us and ways that you can follow, subscribe, or support us. We're on various podcast platforms. We're on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're able to, consider supporting us on Patreon. Also want to give a shout out to Daniel Atchison, the music artist Atch, for permission to use his song Forever in our productions. Until next time.